Welcome in to 2-for-1 Drafts. Austin Gayle here with Mike Renner, ready to rock and roll on a lovely Wednesday morning here in Cincinnati. We got off-ball linebacker takes for you here on the 2-for-1 Drafts podcast this edition. We got 12 off-ball linebackers in our current top 50 and another 12 off-ball linebackers in the PFF 2020 NFL Draft Guide.
150. Said 12 in the top 50.
Oh, sorry. 12 in the top 150.
Yeah.
I thought I said that.
There you go.
12 in the top 150, another 12 in the 2020 NFL Draft Guide, which is made available to all Edge and Elite subscribers. Very excited about that. Definitely encourage you to grab your copy. But this is a sneaky good off-ball linebacker class, and I think the Combine proved that. I think going in, I wasn't high on it. I think we had Troy Dye as our number 2 off-ball linebacker, and even he had some limitations. But Patrick Queen, Kenneth Murray definitely stepped up. I think there's an interesting day 2 option in Willie Gayle Jr., who kind of lit the Combine literally on fire.
No, not literally, but yeah.
Okay, no, not literally. Okay, you can't really bring that up with Willie Gayle.
I was going to say, yeah, of him of all people, he could.
All right, but also I think Malik Harrison tested better than people expected. I think there's a lot to like in this linebacker group, and I think to start with these off-ball linebackers, to start with these off-ball linebackers, I want to bring up kind of your overall evaluation of off-ball linebackers right now, because I think it is a difficult position to evaluate in today's NFL. It's also a position that's drastically changing. It's low on the positional value chart, absolutely. Give me your take overall on what you're looking for in a good off-ball linebacker at the next level.
I will say this class has very much grown on me. The more I've watched it, the more I've watched some of these guys and what they bring to the table. And obviously the Combine, I think, showed that with how athletic a lot of the top of the class is. And I think that's I was actually asked on a podcast yesterday which position has been scouted differently over the past, decade or whatever. And I think linebacker has very much changed. What you expect out of your linebacker, what you need them to be able to do in the NFL has completely changed in the past 10 years. And it's because of what offenses are doing nowadays. Yep. The rise in 3 wide receiver sets becoming base personnel, meaning you have to be able to match trips. You have to be able to match quads, with your base personnel, sometimes with your nickel defense. Means that these linebackers have to be not just between the tackles players, but they have to be able to cover the slot. If they get matched up with a wide receiver one-on-one.
Or a running back split into the slot.
Yeah, like that, you can't have that be a mismatch. You have to be able to have an answer for everything the offense is going to possibly throw at you without completely subbing and, taking a guy off the football field. So the guys that have that ability, that can, kick out to the slot and not look out of place, can play in space, can execute a different coverage role than just spot dropping. Those are the guys actually adding value in today's NFL, not the guys who are, downhill thumpers. There's room for that still in certain schemes. You can still have that guy in your defense, but versatility is at an all-time high at the position. So that's what you'll see on our draft board.
I'm going to add that a little bit. I think speed, athleticism, and versatility has become so much more important for the off-ball linebacker position over the past 5 years. I think speed, athleticism, and versatility. And for that reason,
you literally just repeated what I said.
Well, I think I wanted to sum it up.
Okay.
I wanted to sum it up there.
Thank you.
But I think with that being said, weight is not as important. You can be a 225-pound linebacker, 230-pound off-ball linebacker in the NFL and have success. And I think that's what we're seeing with these guys. I think we no longer want thumper mentality, these tough guys who wear neck rolls. That's not a necessity anymore. What you need to do is be able to, like you said, cover the slot, cover running backs in coverage, and do different things in coverage.
Explosiveness is more important than purely weight. The ability, you can take on blocks if you're 220, but explosive.
Yeah.
And so I think the guys who were coming in the league a decade ago at around 225 and playing strong safety are now linebackers. Cam Chancellor comes into the league now, he's a linebacker. He's not safety.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about playing that guy deep. You're playing him around the line of scrimmage. He's going to be considered a linebacker. So that's where that to me has been one of the things we were kind of behind the curve on, to be honest, at PFF in terms of realizing.
If you bring up the Deion Jones,
Deion Jones, the Deion Jones, not realizing that, hey, this is a coverage position. Some NFL teams were very much ahead of the curve. We were behind the curve on that.
For those who don't know, who haven't followed PFF for a while or listened to the previous podcast, Deion Jones, I think, was 250 on our draft board coming out in that draft class. And obviously he's become so much of a better player. Came in at 219 pounds or somewhere in that. Thought he was undersized, whatever it may be. Can't play the run at the next level. But he's obviously obviously developed into kind of this new age modern off-ball linebacker. When healthy, I'd argue one of the best off-ball linebackers in the NFL right now. All right, let's dive into this 2020 class, though. A lot of names to bring up. Like we said, 24 total off-ball linebackers in PFF's 2020 NFL Draft Guide, available to Edge and Elite subscribers. But Isaiah Simmons, the top guy here. Clemson off-ball linebacker, safety, defensive playmaker, whatever you want to call him. He's the top linebacker in this class. It's not even close. I don't think there's much more we can really say about this guy. Everyone knows this guy's the real deal.
Yeah, when you summed up my point of versatility, athleticism, whatever the last point was, I forget. That's Simmons. I mean, that is who he is. I mean, that's what he's been at Clemson. That's what he's, what they asked him to do there, and he executed it at a very high level, elite coverage grades the past 2 seasons. So, yeah, I think you saw the freak athleticism at the combine. And again, a lot of guys are freak athletes. Not a lot of guys. It translates to the football field the way it does and has already for Isaiah Simmons. So, to me, he's in that Derwin James tier of defender where just I don't know if Swiss Army knife's quite the right term. That's more like, I feel like that's more for like safeties who can do it all. This guy's the prototype. I think prototype is the best. He is what you want at the defensive to match up with modern offenses in today's NFL.
I would agree 100%. Isaiah Simmons this past year earned an 88.5 overall grade, the 7th ranked figure among off-ball linebackers, and he also earned an 88.9 overall grade in 2018, all while playing over 750 defensive snaps both years. I think that's good production, good sample size, 6'4", 230 pounds. I mean, this guy brings everything you want to the table, tested very well. I think you've said it. I think you sum him up best. He's the perfect addition to a defense for the modern NFL defense to defend modern offenses.
And Clemson, and to their credit, utilized him in a role like that to where like it helps you disguise and, like I said, match up with motions and things like that, where he would go from covering the slot to then motioning inside and receiver motions across formation. He comes inside and plays linebacker, and there's no... You've not, jeopardized the sort of, you haven't had to change coverage call. You haven't had to really do anything, to your defense. So that's what he brings to the table, and it's a special skill set.
Right now, Isaiah Simmons is the 7th ranked overall player on PFF's big board, the linebacker one in this class. At 40, the 40th best player in the class is Patrick Queen of LSU. He's jumped up quite a bit in this pre-draft process, had a good combine, earned a 74.6 overall grade across 780 defensive snaps this past year. Brings range, quickness. I think he's aggressive in the box. Patrick Queen really blew up against Clemson in that championship game. I think there's a lot to like about this kid as well.
Yeah, 6 stops in the national championship game, and a lot of them, if he doesn't make the stop, they're big plays. Like his tackling, Travis Etienne in space the way he did is difficult. It's not just... While we don't give extra credit for that in the grading system, the fact that you're going up against probably the most dynamic running back in the country, from a scouting perspective, I can say, hey, that was a way better play than the +1 we just gave him. That's, it's a +2. That's a play that just other linebackers aren't making. And I think you saw that from Queen fairly regularly. And it was a guy who we were low on because, he didn't even start at the beginning of the year. And we trust sort of grading and sample sizes. So if you look good and it's been like 5 or 6 games, we're going to wait till,
Michael Divinity started over him, correct?
Exactly. Michael Divinity was starting over him until he left the team there at LSU. So it wasn't even a starter at the beginning of the year. But then down the stretch, how much he developed. And again, like I said, the national championship game was just excellent football. Still not going to be your quintessential, not going to be a great run defender, more in the Deion Jones mold of he'll make plays on wide runs, but between the tackles, might not be there. But he does have the explosiveness. He's not going to be a liability in that regard. And he's not even 21 years old yet. So this is not a guy who's a finished product by any means. The arrow is pointing upward.
So right now, 40th ranked on PFF's board. This guy is viewed largely as a first-round prospect by many. Where are you right now? Why are you not putting him into that first-round conversy?
That's a good question. He's probably like the late first round, to be honest, for me, because I think it's deep. I think it's a deep class. Like there's a lot of guys who, maybe aren't in our top 32 who I still would not hate taking in the first round, and he's probably one of them at 40.
All right, let's move to Kenneth Murray, the Oklahoma off-ball linebacker who's 43rd ranked on PFF's board, the linebacker 3 in this class. Another guy that's risen a ton in this process. He has risen. Kenneth Murray, a 68.3 overall grade in 2019 across 829 defensive snaps. Not the grading profile that we like from him. I think you have concerns about his instinct, specifically dropping into coverage, turning his back to the line of scrimmage. I think that's where he kind of gets lost in the sauce.
So that's the thing. It's like he doesn't, in that Oklahoma defense, he wasn't turning and running with guys. He is, dropping to a spot, and then he's playing only forward. Mm-hmm. And that's a small part of what you're going to see in the NFL. NFL offenses, like, depending on
they're going to turn you around.
Yeah, you're going to have to follow the tight end up the seam. You're going to have to do things like that, and he just wasn't asked to in Oklahoma in their defense. So it's just a different role than he might play in the NFL. Now there are defenses that is a role, like he might just do that. And Green Bay has been a popular sort of mock draft spot for him, and that's what Blake Martinez basically did in their defense this past year with as much man coverage as they played. He's just that hole player looking to, or either picking up running backs out of the backfield and always coming forward. And with Kenneth Murray, that's what he does best.
Nothing wrong with being a hole player, though.
I consider us both hole players as well. But he's explosive in a straight line, maybe the most in this entire draft class after Isaiah Simmons. Just when he comes downhill, if you watch the Baylor game, the Big 12 championship game, like he
flies.
He covers in a blink of an eye, gets into the backfield in a hurry. So, and he's great at things like that. The missed tackles, the angles, he gets a little out of control at times. Like he definitely does. But again, another guy who's only a junior coming out, still young. Like the natural talent that is definitely there.
I mean, it's hard not to fall in love with a rocket coming downhill. I mean, with Kenneth Murray, what he does with the ball in front of him when he's playing the ball in front of him is special. He has that burst. He has that explosion that, like we said at the top of the podcast, that you want at off-ball linebacker now. He can explode through blocks and things like that. I think Kenneth Murray, a valuable player in this class. I think he has a very good chance, along with Patrick Queen, to sneak in to the back end of the first round, especially because, and we didn't bring this up, but there aren't a ton of good off-ball linebackers in the NFL right now. Luke Kuechly just retired. I'd say Bobby Wagner is easily the best in the NFL right now with Luke Kuechly retired. But after that, it's pick and choose. There aren't, Darius Leonard is obviously up there. I think you could throw Joe Schobert into the mix. Blake Martinez, maybe, I don't know. Like, again, off-ball linebacker is not a rich
I wouldn't
position.
Throw Blake Martinez
I wouldn't throw Blake Martinez in there either. But I guess it's not a rich position. Like, who would you call? I mean, who would you even call, like, some of the second, third best linebacker in the NFL right now?
I know. So you got Bobby Wagner. Deion Jones when healthy. Levante David down in Tampa Bay. Maybe the Devons take a step forward next year. I don't know, but like
the Saints player, the veteran. I'm losing him right now, but I think he's played very well this past year. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he played very well this past year. But another veteran at off-ball linebacker.
Great content.
But again, I will say it's not a rich position in the NFL.
Demario Davis
right now. Yep, Demario Davis. All right, Troy Dye of Oregon comes in at 48. Very close. These three very close on PFF's big board. Patrick Queen, Kenneth Murray, and Troy Dye of Oregon. A little bit of an older prospect compared to these other two. Has earned very good grades over the past 3 years, though. An 81.1 overall grade in 2017, 80.7 in 2018, and 77.4 in 2019. All while playing over 750 defensive snaps each year. And he played this past year with a broken hand.
Yes.
And like a big boxing glove over that hand. And I think he still had impressive production for those injuries and across such a large sample size.
Yeah, and so what I talked about, Murray only going forward. You see Dye having to turn and run the seam flat, cover wheel routes, that sort of thing. He's very smooth, very long, not as explosive as the guys ahead of him on this list. He does not have that level of athleticism. So that's a bit of a concern. That's the worry there. 231 pounds, but like he probably played more around 220 at Oregon. Does look very slightly built, but I just love how smooth his hips are in coverage. He's a guy who I think can cover tight ends at a high level in the NFL, brings that to the table, and just a very sound all-around football player. So you're chasing the high end with guys like Queen, Murray, Simmons, and Simmons has already been an elite player in his own right. So you're chasing the high end with Queen and Murray. I think Dye, you know what you're getting. It's a solid coverage linebacker. You're never going to get Deion Jones. You're never going to get elite physical traits, but you get a guy who more kind of like that Joe Schobert tier of like he's just good at football all around and has been productive over the course of his college career.
I would encourage everyone to go back and watch Troy Dye play coverage because I think the hip fluidity is underrated. This guy can turn around and go make a play. There's a play against Stanford tight end that he makes great at the catch point. Another one, he makes an interception against Utah with the big glove.
Yeah.
It's kind of absurd. I think his instincts are underrated. I think you say it again, like this guy's just a good football player, and I think that shows up in coverage. And when it shows up in coverage, it has a ton of value at that position. competition because, like we said, there aren't a ton of good off-ball linebackers in the NFL right now. I think Troy Dye fills the need for a lot of teams in the NFL right now. Let's jump to App State's Akeem Davis-Gaither, a guy who played more of a edge defender type of role at App State and played one well. I mean, his pass rush productivity was very good. He earned his 76.5 overall grade across 886 defensive snaps this past year. Uber athlete. I think he had to eat his way to 220 pounds or wherever he weighed in at the combine, but I think he's that lighter build that has a ton of athleticism, a ton of explosion, still very raw, learning the position, didn't face great competition at App State. But I think from a tool standpoint, this guy brings a lot to the table.
Yeah, didn't test out the combine, but the explosiveness, like I'm not too worried about what the testing numbers say. Like he showed it there, he showed it at the Senior Bowl, he showed it one-on-one reps against offensive tackles. He's just beating guys with his pass rushing moves. So I don't really worry about him taking on blocks. It's just the role he played at App State is not really like it was edge rusher, then spot drop into coverage, like very limited sort of skill set. And now he was very good at it. But yeah, that motion right there, the up and down, he's very good at it. But it's like limited competition, projectable skill set. You worry about, all of a sudden the role he's going to play in the NFL is vastly different against much better competition. So that's a little bit of a concern. And he is undersized, but he has all the athleticism to make it work. And I love the way he plays the game. Like he plays 100 miles an hour every single snap, no plays off sort of guy. So Akeem Davis-Gaither right outside, that top group. Feel really good about that top group of linebackers. He's probably just right outside on the outside looking in.
I say nay to the undersized. I like my off-ball linebackers like Akeem Davis-Gaither.
Appropriately sized.
I think he's appropriately sized. I really do like. I mean, we were talking to him at the Senior Bowl. He said he was eating like over 6,000 calories a day to get to 220. But I like that. I mean, this guy's kind of rocked up too. I think he not a lot of bad weight on Akeem Davis-Gaither. He's going to have to learn a ton in the NFL. But from what I've from talking to him and hearing him at the combine, I think this is a guy who's smart enough to learn at the next level, continue to develop his skill set. All right, let's jump to Willie Gaye Jr., your guy, Mississippi State off-ball linebacker, 68th ranked on PFF's big board. Could rise even more beyond that. I really do like Willie Gaye. At the top of day 2, I'm strongly considering him. I don't see him as a day 3 guy. This is not a day 3 prospect. He brings day 1 talent, day 1 explosion with some day 3 off-field concerns.
That's the thing. It's like he's been as high as like 30-something on our board. Like he's that's the level of talent is his first round talent.
Yeah.
Like if you actually saw a full season from this guy this past year of kind of what we saw in that limited 4.5 game sample size we did see from him, I'd probably be in the first round. If he didn't have any off field, he would be a first round guy. But it's like the off field's serious. Like you can't get suspended 8 games for cheating on chemistry test and not take that into account. You can't punch your quarterback and not have that taken into account in your draft eval. It's just. And you can't be as freaky as he is and only have and never have started. Like why was he not starting at Mississippi State? Still a sub package guy, even though I don't really have too many. Like I like the way he plays the run. I thought he looked a lot better in that regard this past season. So yeah, I mean he's a freak. Like he's a certified freak athlete at the linebacker position. If Isaiah Simmons didn't exist, he'd be getting a lot more pub for how freaky his numbers were.
I mean, his combine was almost better than Isaiah Simmons in some ways. I mean, he tested
bigger.
very, very well at the combine. I want to dive into the off-field concerns a little bit, just get specific. I talked to him. He said he cheated on a chemistry test. Didn't give me a ton of detail after that. I asked him why. He said it was a tough class. What do you want me to do? But then I talked to some other people. Apparently, he had his tutor take the test for him, which is always a bold strategy, but I would say more advanced than peeking on another person's paper or something along those lines. I like that he's looking at other...
But I had to take, it's like, who's not going to notice this 240-pound guy?
Fair. I don't think he has a doppelganger.
It's like,
I don't think this guy, there's not another Willie Gaye Jr. I think it might be Isaiah Simmons.
Unless his tutor was like one of the other linebackers at Mississippi State, you're not going to get it confused.
Hot take. Willie Gaye Jr.'s tutor is a day 3 prospect in the NFL. He should have tested at the combine. But then I looked in the altercation. It was with Garrett Schrader, the quarterback at Mississippi State. It's listed as an altercation. Some have said he punched him in the face. I'd like to see the details on that. But again, the chemistry test stuff, interesting. But if you did listen to the Move to 6 podcast with Daniel Jeremiah, which he'll be on the podcast later in the show if you are listening on the audio version. Live YouTube won't get that, but on the audio version, you will get Daniel Jeremiah. But Daniel Jeremiah on the podcast did say that in the interviews with the NFL teams, Willie Gay impressed.
Yeah.
Their character concerns did not come up in those interviews. It sounds like he just made a couple bad decisions, punched the wrong guy. Getting to his combine, though, 6'1", 243 pounds, 32 and 5/8 inch arms, 10.5-inch hands, a 4.46 40-yard dash, which is absurd. 39.5-inch vertical jump, and a 136-inch broad, 7.08 3-cone. I mean, this guy really did test off the charts across the board.
11.4. Yeah.
11.4 broad jump.
We got that wrong the other day. When
I did. I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that. I'm bad at math. Here we are. But yeah, Willie Gay Jr.
Yeah, I mean, those are that's all-time numbers. If like I said, if Isaiah Simmons didn't exist.
My comp for him, a joking comp, was Bobby Wagner. That's bad at chemistry, but I feel like athletically they tested very similar. I mean, they're rare athletes, both very similar in that regard. All right, let's jump to the next off-ball linebacker. Enough love for Willie Gay Jr.
That's assuming though that Bobby Wagner is good at chemistry, which we don't know either.
Fair. Maybe he didn't get caught cheating. Who took Bobby Wagner's chemistry test in college? I want to know. All right, Malik Harrison of Ohio State. He's a ways down. So Willie Gay Jr. 68th on PFF's board right now. Malik Harrison 93rd.
Yeah.
6'3", 245 pounds, earned an 82.6 overall grade. On tape, this guy looks like your quintessential thumper, but he shows up to the combine and tests very, very well for a guy of his size.
Yeah, I think. And he was another guy who got in a limited coverage role at Ohio State. It was often the spy in their defense. Not a lot of reps of him going backwards on tape, and that was fine. And I thought he was very good playing forward. And so if you don't see a guy going backwards, I didn't realize he would have that 6.8 3-cone. Like I didn't know he could turn the way he did.
That's hot.
So I want to see
4.32 short
more
shuttle.
of it. Yeah, he didn't look great necessarily at the Senior Bowl. I didn't fall in love. I didn't necessarily see all that right away. And you don't get a ton of reps there, though, obviously, in coverage. In the linebackers, it's probably it's less than 10 the whole week. So that's not a great sample size to go off of. But I think with how well he plays the run, he's one of the better run defenders at the linebacker position in this class, he can be a guy in your defense to where, Bernard McKinney type, where Bernard McKinney's not going to be manning up with a lot of slot wide receivers, that sort of thing. If you're going to really stick them between the tackles every single play and not have the guy, like we talked about, the versatile guys who can go match out in the slot, if that's what his role is, if you have that role in your defense, I think Malik Harrison is a perfect fit for something like that.
Yeah, weighed in at the combine, 6'3", 247 pounds, a 4.66 40-yard dash, 36-inch broad, a 10.2 broad, 36-inch vert, and a 6.8 3-cone. That's where he really popped off. Having that change of direction at 247 pounds is very impressive for Malik Harrison. Moving down the list here, Davian Taylor, who went in the first round, by the way, went in the first round of PFF's analytics mock draft, which heavily weighs athleticism score at that position. Davian Taylor projects as a very good athlete at the next level, has a track background. If you don't know the other background, I encourage you to read the draft guide or listen to this next bit here. But Davian Taylor did not play in more than one game in his high school career due to religious reasons. He was not allowed to play in athletic activities after sunset on Fridays or on the weekends. He only played in one game, and it was because the sun set a little bit later that day and his mom let him roll. Goes to JUCO, finds his way to Colorado, still very raw, but has this kind of illustrious track background, showed out as an athlete at Colorado, and now has a very good chance of getting drafted into the NFL.
Yeah, so he played at Colorado a lot of the slot overhang role that doesn't really exist in the NFL, but it's good for showcasing coverage skills, and he has that. He can run with slot wide receivers up the field, 4.49 940 at the combine, 228 pounds, sub 7 3-cone, all the athleticism in the world. You see him close to the flat so quickly in the blink of an eye, he gets up to full speed. The instinct, he's still a work in progress in terms of how quickly he processes.
If he had good instincts, this would just be stupid. What are we even doing? Yeah. This guy learns faster than anyone here.
He just is not necessarily he didn't play football in high school makes a lot of sense. The game is a little fast for him at the moment, but he can't teach 228-pound runners sub 4.5. That's sort of special movement skills that he possesses. And when he is in space and when he is when it's natural reaction ability sort of thing, when it's not thinking and processing, it looks good. He doesn't have much of a missed tackle problem. He wraps up well in space. He looks like he plays a physical brand of football then at that point. So I think a scheme like the Colts, some defense that's not asking you to do a ton of reads, that's just asking you to, just react to what you're seeing. I think that's going to be the best fit for him in the NFL.
All right, let's jump to Jordan Brooks of Texas Tech, who has his name spelled on Texas Tech's website as Jordan with a Y. Combine profile is Jordan with an A. No one will know. No one will find out. Weighed in at 6 foot, 240 pounds. Only tested in the 40-yard dash. Did a bit of a mic drop with a 4.54 40-yard dash. Impressive for a guy his size. Talk to me about Jordan Brooks.
This dude's a rock. 6 foot, 240 pounds, and he might be 6-7% body fat. Like this dude is filled out to the max right there. And we talk about all these guys who are these versatile. Maybe they can play the run, maybe they can't. This guy's going to play the run. Like 4.54, he has the speed to go against wide runs. He can come downhill and blow up offensive tackles. Only 6 foot, but has almost 33-inch arms, which is like how you want to build a linebacker. Is a short guy, so he has great leverage, and then can also stack offensive linemen. So we're talking about guys, 20 years ago, this guy might be like a top 5 pick in the NFL.
Really?
With how well he's like, with how explosive he is and how well he plays the run. Like he's a sure thing in that regard, in my opinion. Coverage is a little different story. I would bet, his 3-cone and shuttle aren't going to match quite that 40 time in terms of impressiveness. He is a little stiff, like he maybe is a little too muscle bound at this point with how jacked he is. But like coming downhill, anything kind of a Kenneth Murray light in terms of anything coming downhill is just going to get erased by this dude. He's pretty impressive in that regard.
All right, jumping to Logan Wilson of Wyoming, came in at 6'2", 241 pounds, a 4.63 40-yard dash, a 7.07 3-cone, 32-inch vertical. I think some impressive athleticism. I also think it showed up on tape. Logan Wilson also, grade has improved every year of his career. He's played over nearly 800 snaps all 3 of the past 3 seasons, or each year of the past 3 seasons, an 81.3 overall grade in 2017, 85.5 in 2018, all the way up to a 90.6, the 5th best off-ball linebacker in college football in 2019. Very impressed with how Logan Wilson has improved.
This guy's kind of I'll call him a Leighton Vander Esch light. And so 241 pounds on the bigger side. Obviously, Vander Esch was like in the 250s coming out, but like as a bigger linebacker, not limited in terms of what he can do in coverage. He's very smooth, does not look, 241 pounds, but moves like a guy probably about 10 to 15 pounds lighter, very nimble, and has the feel for zone coverages already, has made a ton of plays on the football there at Wyoming. So a big fan of his game. And again, the athletic testing was good. And that was kind of the thing is I wasn't sure he would be necessarily as fast as he was. 4.63 40 though. Great time for him. Straight line. Like this guy, all these guys we've mentioned here, I would be hard-pressed to see any of them sneaking out of the 3rd round at this point. And you talk about what we hit rate, almost 10 guys, and all in the top 3 rounds. It's pretty rare for a linebacker class, I think.
Definitely. The linebacker class growing. Yeah. Absolutely growing, blowing up here. All right, Cam Brown, the Penn State off-ball linebacker, who has a weird build. This guy is crazy. 6'5", 233 pounds, 34-inch arms. Only ran a 4.72 40-yard dash. I thought he would have tested better there. A 35.5-inch vertical jump for Cam Brown. I don't think the tape is great with Cam Brown, but he has some tools that I think are interesting that teams will like it.
And yes, he played another guy who played the overhang role in Penn State's defense often. He has played out in space, but he was not as good out in space than the guys we've mentioned before here. Like does not look as natural there, but I think the length and the size profile is very translatable to the NFL. He's a guy, you're playing a zone heavy defense, someone like, the Bills, you get a guy with that sort of length and he's just going to shut down passing windows purely because, you don't make a lot of guys 6'5" with 34-inch arms, dropping into coverage that have that ability. So that's what he brings to the table. Also, I thought he was pretty good as a blitzer. I thought he took on blocks when it's him versus a running back, one of the better blitzers in this draft class. So I think that's what he brings to the table. And we just didn't see special on tape, though. Didn't see a lot of high-level plays from him in coverage.
All right, I'm going to lump these next 2 guys together here. David Woodward of Utah State and then also Marcus Baylor of Purdue, because both of these guys, I think, have put good film on tape but have really struggled with injuries.
I was going to say, and I think you can even put Francis Bernard in here, too, the Utah guy. Okay. They're all kind of like similar vein in terms of somewhat limited athletes, not exceptional athletes, very productive college football players who have kind of a question mark also on top of that. Marcus Bailey has multiple ACL injuries at this point.
Woodward has multiple injuries across his entire body, I'm pretty sure. He's run through a lot.
Multiple injuries, and then he came to the combine, did not test well. Francis Bernard, 25 years old already, had threatened to kill a cop sort of thing. That's not good.
Threatened to kill a cop sort of thing? Do you care to elaborate?
Who amongst us hasn't been in a situation where we threatened to...
That's different than a chemistry test.
Actually, might not have been kill. It might have been just threatening to punch a cop.
Okay. Does it compare to what Robbie Anderson told that cop? Do you remember when Robbie Anderson said something about a cop's wife or something? I don't want to bring it up on the podcast. It's kind of aggressive, but go look up Robbie Anderson cop discussion because it's also pretty fantastic.
It doesn't sound like it was much of a discussion.
Okay, so give me the skinny on Woodward, Bailey, and Bernard.
But like I said, all incredibly productive college football players. You just worry about, Bailey, I'm not sure after a second ACL his ever going to necessarily be the same. Second ACL, I think it's the same one they tore again. That's a very serious injury to happen twice. Worry about whether he can even stay on the field, and then if he's going to have that same change of direction ability. Woodward he's a limited athlete. You're going to have to live with that. I thought he's a good tackler out in space. I thought he was, had very good instincts for the position, but instincts only get you so far in the NFL. You still have to have some level of athleticism, and he ran a 4.8 at the combine, which is that's borderline that you could even see a football field anymore in the NFL. And then Bernard, already 25 years old, stubby, little T-Rex arm kind of guy at the linebacker position.
You hate to see that at linebacker.
And then not a great athlete in his own right, but two guys.
He didn't look good at the Senior Bowl either. I expected him to kind of have an opportunity to shine there, and Francis Bernard did not rise to the occasion.
Yeah, so what was it? Woodward goes 4.79, and then Bernard went 4.81. At the combine at 234 pounds.
And 4.8s, if we go back to the top of the podcast, you're running in the 4.8s at off-ball linebacker when I'm looking for speed, versatility, and athleticism. That's not cutting it for me. And you're old, I'm starting to get concerned.
Exactly.
All right, I got to bring up the Robbie Anderson thing. So in January of 2018, he was arrested for reckless driving, resisting arrest, and eluding police, and threatening a public servant. And he threatened to bang the cop's wife, and I quote said, "nut in her eye." That was the Robbie Anderson conversation that we did have that I was referring to. Had to bring that up. Had to tie a bow, drop a cherry on that one. Here, let's move forward to the next off-ball linebackers, though. Shaquille Quarterman of Miami. What's your take on Shaquille?
Shaquille Quarterman is one of the best blitzing off-ball linebackers in this class. Let's just switch gears. He comes downhill with reckless abandon. His good length. I thought he could have legitimately made the switch to edge rusher, and that might actually be better for him than off-ball linebacker because he's not good in space. Mm-hmm. He's not made a lot of plays one-on-one with ball carriers where there's, two-way goes. He just doesn't have that level of athleticism. So he's a throwback kind of guy, which, again, there's a role for that in the NFL. Some teams, you're a man-heavy team that uses your linebackers as blitzers. This is one of your guys. That's not going to be every team, though.
All right, jumping to Minnesota's Kamal Martin. 6'3", 235 pounds listed according to Minnesota. Didn't play a ton of snaps this past year, only 484 defensive snaps, earned a 70.6 overall grade. Give me your opinion of Kamal.
I expected more this year because he's pretty athletic. He has the movement skills you want at the position. It just the light switch never flipped with him. Was a guy who played... he played a lot of overhang earlier in his career, played more traditional linebacker this past year, and that's kind of why I thought you'd see a big jump from him. Was going from overhang to the middle and being closer to the ball, making more plays on the football, and it just didn't happen. So another guy who has the athleticism, but the instincts really, really aren't there with Martin at the time. Only 8 combined pass breakups and interceptions over the course of his entire career, and he's been starting for over 3 years now. So,
all right, this next guy has just an absurd profile, an absurd build, 5'11", 224 pounds, Khalike Hudson of Michigan. I mean, this guy's rocked up, though. He showed at the Senior Bowl, this guy's cut to shreds, but 29 and 3/8-inch arms, very undersized. I'd call this undersized for the linebacker position. Ran a 4.56 40-yard dash. I want you to break into the 4.4s if you're coming in that undersized. 33-inch vertical, 10-foot broad for Khalike Hudson. And I bring up him because I think he is one of the only players at the collegiate level since we started grading in 2014 that earned a 99.9 overall single game grade. I think I remember that coming up in a chat somewhere. But Khalike Hudson earned a 79.2 overall grade in 2017 across 740 defensive snaps, and that's early in his Michigan career. You thought maybe he was starting to trend up, but his grade has dropped every year since then. I don't know what role he plays in the NFL, really.
That's the thing. So he played the Viper. I think that's what they call it at Michigan. The same role that Jabril Peppers did.
You say it with so much disdain, you Notre Dame homer.
Yeah, I have to. He played the Viper role. It's like a recruiting ploy to call it some dumbass name. But the Viper role in Michigan's defense, which was the slot. And so he's covering the slot a lot, but he's not good at covering the slot thing. He gave up over 80% of his targets each of the past 2 years covering the slot. And they play a lot of man coverage at Michigan. So he was getting toasted. He was not good in man coverage playing the slot. So he is more of a linebacker size at 6'2", 220 plus, and with that arm length though is worrisome about a guy playing between the tackles at that size with that arm length. He really, there's a thin line between versatility and tweener. He's tweener. He's a guy
who's the Sutton Smith conversation.
Yeah, he's
like Sutton Smith is like, is he versatile? Can he do a lot of different things? Let's try him at fullback. Oh wait, no, he's just a tweener. I don't know if he can play.
And that's the thing with Hudson. He there's not a role for him necessarily in the NFL. I think safety,
special teams,
is probably his best. Special teams or safety.
I feel like he screams special teamer to me.
Yeah,
I mean, if he can put the mindset. I think you have to have a certain mindset to be like a Michael Thomas, not the New Orleans Saints receiver, but the Giants like special teams ace for a long time. I think Khaleke Hudson has that opportunity.
Like the Nick Ballores of the world.
Yes, the Nick Ballore, your best buddy, Nick Ballore. All right, let's jump to the next off-ball linebacker here. Michael Pinckney of Miami, Florida, 84.8 overall grade in 2018. That dropped to a 76.5 this past year. Reason for the drop off and why so low in this off-ball linebacker case?
He's athletic but not explosive, and I think there's a kind of key difference there. Like and sometimes some of it's play style, some of it's also just like what you got, physically. But like I think in a straight line and like his hips are smooth as well, but he's not a guy who, as an undersized linebacker, I think will be able to get by because taking on blocks, his hit power, that sort of thing, you don't see explosiveness on his tape. He's a late rounder at this point. Depending on your scheme, I could like him over Shaq Quarterman, his teammate there at Miami. But depending on what you're asking him to do, and he could probably stay on the field on third downs, and you're not going to be – it's not going to be a nightmare scenario. But he's just kind of – he's not an every down player in my mind.
All right, moving to one of my favorites in this class. Not for the reason I think he's going to be very good in the NFL, but he has one of the best post-game interviews ever. I would encourage you to go listen to Evan Weaver after they played Arizona State, is I believe what it was. 6'2", 237 pounds, coming out of Cal, ran a 4.76 40-yard dash, which is a bit of a concern, especially at 237 pounds, a 7.02 3-cone, 32-inch vert. With him, I think you compared him to Scooby Wright in the draft guide. Yeah. I feel really good about that comparison. I also think Mark Herzlich is another guy that comes to mind. Just a high-energy guy that will dip his face in black face paint to win for the team. Really great in the locker room, that kind of guy. But I think in terms of actually adding value, special teams. I mean, I don't see him being like a very good off-ball linebacker in the NFL. I think that game has passed his skill set.
Space is ugly. Like him playing in space.
Talk about a guy who had a bad Senior Bowl. Yeah. And I know those drills aren't easy to win. I think those drills where you're going against a running back or a tight end in one-on-one coverage as an off-ball linebacker, you're kind of set to lose. He lost bad, though.
Just the whole stopping and starting is ugly with him. Changing directions, like going from one direction and having to go the other, it's ugly. If he can play between the tackles, kind of play phone booth guy, playing a porta potty guy, he's money. Like his tackling grades are good because when he gets his hands on guys, he tackles them, but he'll miss a lot of tackles where he just doesn't even touch a guy because he's out in space and he just doesn't have that. The
start-stop, the juice, the athleticism, that strength. Oh no, speed, athleticism, versatility. You're not really seeing it.
He's the opposite of speed, athleticism,
unfortunately.
versatility.
All right, Clay Johnston of Baylor, another next on the list of this off-ball linebackers.
I'm a fan of this guy's game.
Okay,
Clay Johnston, a little undersized guy, but I thought he played well between the tackles. On the older side, already a redshirt senior, but had himself a monster year this past year, 90.2 run defense grade.
Small amount of snaps, but
only So I think I think he has what it takes. If you're drafting a day 3 linebacker, I think he has what it takes to become, a 3-down guy in your defense.
Gotcha.
Now, I'm not saying he's necessarily going to be, and he is on the smaller side, doesn't have great length, that sort of thing. There are limitations to his game, but I think he has the straight line speed, has the physicality to play between the tackles. But again, the injury this past season and the years prior to this didn't grade out nearly as well. But there's something there with Clay Johnston.
All right, next guy here, potential sleeper, in my opinion, Dante Olson of not Minnesota, Montana. Montana, the Grizzlies, the Grizz, if you will. His grade has improved every year of his career at Montana. Only played 224 defensive snaps in 2018, but it was a 74.4 overall grade. 987 defensive snaps this past year, and 86.1 overall grade. Did not miss a ton of tackles. Small school guy, not going to get coveted for that reason, but there are some tools to work off here.
He had a 42-inch vertical at the combine and ran a 4.88 40.
It doesn't make sense.
That seems impossible to me, that you can be that explosive. Like
his start had to have been atrocious. Did he do a bear crawl to start?
Maybe
I don't know.
He jumped. He physically can't do anything without jumping. I don't know. 4.88 is just awful, though. And he's really, you watch his tape, he's not fast. That's what shows up in space. It's not great. But between the tackles, he's pretty sweet. Like he's great at taking on blocks. He can play really low, and he consistently dips underneath blocks to make plays.
He's got a sweet
really
goatee.
Sound tackler. Yeah, he's got a nice goatee. But he's
a 42-inch vert and a 124-inch broad like that. And he got 7-second three cone. I mean, those are very. That's an interesting combine. That's a very interesting combine for an off-ball linebacker.
It's a unique combine that I've really never seen anything close to.
What is? I don't know what to say about it. Honestly, I think the pro day will be interesting. Like, how close are those numbers to at his pro day if he does retest? I doubt he jumps again, but maybe another 40-yard dash makes this thing a little bit more sense. All right, last off-ball linebacker before we cut to the interview with Daniel Jeremiah at the end of the podcast here is Michael Divinity of LSU.
I don't see it with Divinity. I don't know what Coach O was doing, throwing him over Patrick Queen. At off-ball linebacker or at edge, I was not super high on him heading into this year. And when they did say, he's switching to edge, I was like, okay, that's actually or switching from edge to off-ball. I thought that was a good move for him. Did not look like a natural fit at off-ball linebacker. Still looked very limited in coverage. And then he ran a 4.84 at the combine. He reminds me of Eric Stryker coming out of Oklahoma, where he was undersized. Everyone knew he had to move off ball. And then Eric Stryker ran like a 4.9. And it's just like, you never heard from him again. That seems like
unfortunate.
That seems like Divinity's career path here.
All right, that's going to do it for the live broadcast here on YouTube. But if you are listening on the audio version, you're going to hear next an interview with Daniel Jeremiah of NFL. We found out that you should go do it.
Yes,
you should definitely go listen on the audio version of this podcast. But it was fantastic. Daniel Jeremiah was fantastic. Really do like what he did there. I mean, he said Danny. His grandma used to call him Danny. He hated it. We kind of joked with him there. The interview was good. But that's going to do it for the live version. Thanks again. This has been Austin Gayle, Mike Renner, 2-for-1 Drafts.